Sandton, as this morning Moody's Investors Service is holding its 12th Annual Sub-Saharan Africa Summit at the Maslow Hotel in Sandton. The full-day event will include presentations from the rating agencies, lead analysts, banking, insurance, corporate as well as structured finance groups. But our reporter Desiree Chauke, before that Chauke is at the event and she joins us once again. Des, good morning to you again.
Vanessa, thank you so much. You're right. A whole host of stakeholders will be coming through this morning, business leaders, people in the financial services industry who have an interest in this topic today. But we're now joined by Zuzana Brixiova. She's the Vice President, or rather, Zuzana, let's correct what you do within Moody?
I'm Vice President and Senior Analyst in the Sovereign Risk Group, and my focus is on Sub-Saharan Africa.
For a moment there, I thought the Vice President bit was not correct. You are based in London and you've come all the way for this event. It must show how significant it is, and what's the significance of holding it in South Africa? In which other countries on the continent have you held it at in the past 12 years?
Yes, so this is our 12th summit in Johannesburg. We're looking at developments in the region, in Sub-Saharan Africa. We also hold a similar conference in Nigeria for the past several years, and in these particular two countries, because together they account for more than half of Sub-Saharan Africa GDP. We also hold annual event in Kenya, which is another regionally important market.
Just yesterday, you released a statement saying that the South African economy is still not looking promising, and yet here we are holding the event in this very country. What are the ties between the performance of the economy of a country and you deciding to be visible in that country?
Well, again, as I mentioned, we have a long-term relationship with South Africa. We have started doing rating here more than 20 years ago. And this is a systemically important country for the rest of the continent. So it's important that we monitor quite closely. Now, as far as the challenging economic conditions, South Africa has been on a downward path, on declining growth path for some quite time now, and the question is at what point we will see more robust recovery that will be supported by investment and structural reforms.
In fact, one of the conversations you're holding this afternoon is South Africa beyond the downgrade. What sort of conversations can be expected there?
Yes, so we had a rating action on South Africa in June where we downgraded to BAA3 from BAA2 and assigned negative outlook, which means there are still significant risks to the rating. But having said that, it's an investment grade credit, and therefore we see also a number of strengths. And some of the strengths are liquid and financial markets and a highly developed banking sector. Another strength is low share of foreign currency debt in the total public debt, and also, very sound, coherent and transparent macroeconomic framework. Also, South African institutions have been gradually eroding over time and have been tested, but they are still overall stronger than in a number of other emerging markets.
Talking about institutions that are eroding, one of your main emphases today is credit impact, exploring the credit impact of changing economic and policy environment. What are the new changes coming onto the financial services space that South Africa or the banking sector, which has also been downgraded, what sort of changes can they implement in their institutions to make sure that they keep up with the times?
Well, as I said, the South African financial sector and banking sector is one of the strengths of our credit from the sovereign perspective. It's also, for example, in the Global Competitiveness Report, ranked as one of the strongest globally. We have our banking colleagues that can give you more information about it. From our perspective, the policy framework and the actions of the South African Reserve Bank is something that we monitor very closely. And maybe I can mention we have recently also commented on this. So, for example, as far as the interest rate, policy rate cut that we recently observed, we thought from economic perspective the decision was very well justified. It just coincided with political pressures that the SARB has been facing.
So how do we make that balance between the political side and the practical investor interest?
Well, at the end, what matters to us and what matters to investors are the policy implications of the political developments, and to what extent can we have a stable and predictable investment climate.
So let's talk about today, what we can expect, who's attending, and what sort of inputs will they make?
Yes, so this is an exciting event for us because we have colleagues from a number of other businesses as well. Besides sovereign, we have the banking sector, we have a corporate sector. We also will take some more global perspective at the developments globally. And we're particularly very much looking forward to the inputs from the participants and their reactions, and very much look forward to their views, how they see South Africa and the rest of the continent evolving.
I don't know about the rest of the world, but we find Moody's work quite complex and sometimes very difficult to understand the impacts of a downgrade, for argument's sake. If you were talking to one of our viewers and wanted to explain to them what the work of Moody's is and what the impacts of the downgrade are, what would you say?
Well, our main purpose is to assess the ability of the sovereign, of the government, to repay its debt, and its debt in a fixed income. And from that we look at a number of factors. We look at the economic strengths of a country, we look at the institutional framework, we look at the fiscal strengths, but also a risk of sudden event, and there we include political risk, external vulnerability, also some possibility that the government may be facing challenges of funding itself, and also the banking sector. So yes, you are right, it's quite complex. In South Africa's context, we had identified 3 key rating drivers, and they are the institutional framework, institutional strengths that has been gradually deteriorating, also the gradually slowing growth, and what are the prospects for medium-term recovery, and also gradually accumulating public debt relative to GDP, and besides the public debt, also the contingent liabilities. They have more than doubled since 2008.
Well, all the best for your event today. Thank you so much for talking to us. Zuzana Brixiova is the Vice President for Moody's in the Sovereign Risk Group, and she's telling us about the event they're about to have today, and also giving a sort of like a confirmation there that the governor, Mr. Lesitsha, is doing good work. So congratulations to him. But for now, it's back to Joburg.